Hi everyone, welcome to episode 8 of Startup Playbook TV. I'm your host Rohit Bhargava, and today I'll be chatting to Will Nguyen, who's a first year student at Monash University. Today we'll be talking about how to test the viability of a startup idea, deciding between a startup and a corporate career path, and the different stories that people have when they get into the startup space. Hi Will, welcome to Startup Playbook TV and thanks for being here today.
Yeah, no problem.
So for those people watching at home, do you want to tell a little bit about yourself and
Sure.
what you're up to?
My name is Will. I'm a first year uni student. I was invited here by a friend that I met at Hackamon. Hackamon is an event where Monash students can come together and it's about innovation of ideas to improve Monash, and by getting students to come up with ideas about trying to solve the problems that they face. You know, Monash can get like the inputs of students and solve problems that staff members couldn't have foreseen, you know, like the blind spots.
Cool. And so how was the hackathon, first of all? Was that your first one that you went to?
Yeah, first ever.
Okay. How did you find the experience?
It was really fun.
Yeah.
Like I hadn't ever been to like a competition like that, so I was like really jumping out into the deep end. And to be honest, that was my first public speaking event that I was judged on.
Yep.
So it was like a new experience for me.
Awesome.
Like a really great learning experience.
Exciting. And so, yeah, you had like questions or things that you sort of wanted to talk about?
Yeah. About startups, I've always been like a bit skeptical about them, to be honest, because I've heard that 9 out of 10 startups, they fail, and like my mom started a business, so like this is something that's like, you know, like kind of ingrained into me, like that it's a real risk failure.
Yep.
Yeah, because they fail within the first year.
Yep. So is the question more like, how do you, like, is that a real, like what's
like when you're in a room of 100 people, or with like business startups, only 10 of those people will make it past the first year.
Yep.
How do you know that you're not one of the 90 that is just going to lose a lot of money?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the short answer is you don't know. So I think that there's no shortage of good ideas out there, but ideas on their own don't really mean anything. And it's all about the execution side. So I think that the 90+% failure rate is very true. It's a real number. I wouldn't be surprised if it's higher than that. But that's just part of playing the game of startups, because there's no guarantee of success. There are things that you can do to limit the chances of failure. You know, we just had Chris and Yuan in from Studio Ninja, and they sort of talked about, you know, going out to their customers and talking about, you know, co-creating that product with them. Are you familiar with lean startup methodology at all? Is that something?
No.
Okay, so first of all, I highly recommend reading a book called Lean Startup by Eric Rice. Sure. It's kind of the go-to place that everyone sort of points people to when it comes to the startup space. But essentially, it's about testing things and building things that people want rather than making assumptions. So, you know, you might have an idea for the next social network, for example, right? Yeah. And it might sound great on paper, but you never really know until you put something out there. Yeah. And what you'll often find is that you'll go there with an idea of what you think that you want to create, and then people will actually tell you, you know, that's useful, but what would be more useful for me is if you built something else. Gotcha. Right? So what you essentially want to do is you want to limit the amount of assumptions that you have in a business as much as possible before you spend. As you said, one of the biggest things is it's very easy to, okay, so put it this way, there's no shortage of people who are willing to take your money to build a product these days, right? Yeah. If you have an idea, you go to a web development agency with like, you know, 80K, 100K, they'll build a product for you. Yeah. The tough part is, you know, how do you actually get any of your customers to care about your product? And so what you essentially want to do before, in my opinion, what you want to do before you go to a web development agency is try and test the hypothesis of your business. So any particular business idea will have a certain hypothesis of like, if we kind of create the solution around this will work. So do you have an idea at the moment?
Yeah, I do, but
okay.
I do have a lot of support from Monash staff members.
Sure.
So I'm not independent, and I'm being guided along like baby.
Okay, so so I mean, like, regardless of whatever the business is, right? It will rely on something to occur for the business to be successful. So, and that's not just getting customers or getting funding. That's, if you're building a marketplace. Are you familiar with marketplaces?
Just like, is this the same as online shopping?
Kind of similar to online shopping. So like, you're essentially connecting two people online. So my previous business was a crowdfunding for fashion platform. So we were finding emerging fashion designers and then matching them up with people that wanted to buy their clothes. And so that was a marketplace where we were populating two sides of the market, right? So we had a platform that we were building, but our hypothesis wasn't that we could build a platform and put something out there that people would want, that we could do. The hypothesis of the business was, would people actually, want to buy from emerging designers at that time? Would designers actually want to test and validate things that they kind of wanted? Would customers be willing to wait a little bit longer to get something that's specifically produced for them? Would they want to be part of those things? Our platform delivered that solution, but we tested that offline first. So we went and spoke to a bunch of people. We tested the dynamic, whether people would actually act that way. Because again, if you go out and do surveys, more often than not, people will be really friendly to you.
Yeah.
No one's going to turn around and say, "Hey, Will, you've got a really shit idea. Don't do it," right? But you want to kind of figure out, what does your business rely on for it to be successful or for it to fail? Yeah. So what's the biggest risk factor, and what's the easiest way for you to find out whether yes, this is something that people actually want and something that I can actually now devote more time and resources to, or if it's something that isn't what I thought it was going to be.
Gotcha.
Sorry, you were about to say something?
Yeah, I just got a quick question. Like, so do you just poll people? How do you find these people to poll? Because personally, when I get like random surveys and all that, I always notice how like that I'm not the best person to ask, because there's so little context.
Yep.
Especially when it's about like a completely foreign idea, and I always kind of say, like, I give them the answers, but I'm always like, but I'm not completely sure what would happen if it did happen for sure.
Sure. So so the reason why I'm not a fan of surveys per se is often the questions are very leading.
Yeah.
And you're skewing people in terms of the type of things that you want people to say. So I mean, one of the biggest things that I kind of see is a startup will go out and do a bunch of surveys, and the question will be, if we helped you save money, would you download the app? Right? And no one in their right mind is going to say no.
Yeah.
And so they'll say, okay, great, 95% of people want to download our app, where that's not the actual metric that you kind of want to test.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, so I mean, the best way of doing that, so there's two parts. You want to make sure that the information that you're getting or the feedback you're getting are from the right people. So you want to have an idea for target customer in mind. So again, I've seen a lot of people go to their friends and family first, because that's the easiest way, and say, hey, what do you think about this idea?
Isn't it biased?
It's exactly biased, and it's even more, it's even less useful if they're not your target customer, right? So again, from the guys who were earlier, who were creating software for photographers, if they went out and talk to people in the finance space who aren't photographers, the feedback that they're getting isn't as valuable as if they were actually going to go and talk to photographers.
Yeah.
The other part of testing that is, there are different ways of doing that. So, you can kind of do surveys, but be very open-ended. So the way that you would ask questions would be, what are you struggling with at the moment? And what are your current solutions, rather than, hey, we've got this solution, do you think that this would be useful? Because that's very, you're forming that answer in their sort of mind.
Yeah.
The other part of that is, actually testing how people, what people's responses are. So one of the things that we do is, we'll create a landing page, and we'll create a bunch of Facebook ads, and we'll test the conversion rate, and then we'll, again, every business is different, so the dynamic that you'll have to test is very different. But depending on what the dynamic is, like it's relatively easy to get sort of people, point them from Facebook ads into a website or into something else. Yeah. And so at least that way you can test your value propositions. One of the other things that you can do is test customer segments as well. So one of our clients, what we're doing is running Facebook ads. We found 24 different customer segments, so 24 people that will potentially use his product.
Customer segments?
So, again, within, say, if you're doing something for photographers, for example, a wedding photographer is different to a fashion photographer who is different to, there are different sort of things. So, like, in terms of what your starting point is, who the customer segment will be the profile of the specific person that you're trying to reach, who will be the early adopter for your business. So the first few people that will take the leap of, they know that it's not a finished product, they know it's not whatever, but it adds so much value to them that they want to try and use the product.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it answers a lot, and also brings up a lot more questions.
Yeah, great.
That I haven't fully formed.
Sure.
It's just a lot of confusion.
So what's the biggest question on your sort of mind with that?
So yeah, the thing is, like, I don't know what I don't know yet.
Yep.
It's one of those things, like, you got questions, but it's just a general state of confusion.
Okay.
But like, I'm clarifying a lot more. I've got a lot more to think about.
Great.
So about this kind of startup thing, is this like a sort of lifestyle, or do you just come up with one idea and you say, I'm going to try this? Or is it like constant startups after startups? Because the latter is what I see a lot, and I'm kind of, is there always an idea that needs to be created, or do you create an idea when there is an idea to be created?
Again, so personally, like, everyone is different. Everyone has different reasons why they get into entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
In general. So I can only kind of speak to like my own experience and why I kind of got into the game. In terms of what I've seen, it's a lot better to come in with a particular problem that you're trying to solve than wanting to start a startup for the sake of being in that space. That's right?
Sort of what I mean.
I've seen a lot of people who have been, obviously, you've got Instagram that sold after 500 days. You've got Snapchat founder dating Miranda Kerr. Like, there's a lot of hype in the space. There's a lot of success stories. There's a lot of people raising funding, and so I think a lot of people who may not have otherwise been startup founders or have thought about that have wanted to start a startup for those reasons. I think personally, so as you said, there's a 90% failure rate just for the first year. Even if you pass the first year, chances are that it's still difficult to actually build something that's kind of successful. So I had a startup for 3 years. I wouldn't I wouldn't say that we were successful. We were successful to a point, but it wasn't what we were trying to achieve. And so I think like you've just got to be really self-aware of like what is the reason of why are you getting into entrepreneurship and what gives you the biggest upside, right? So you might be better off in joining another startup that's really starting to take off and has some has funding and has all of those things and being part of that journey, versus starting your own startup because it's the cool thing to do.
Yeah,
but
that's what I mean.
Yeah,
it's like a lot of hype.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of ego, even.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Like it's really, really tough. And again, there's no right or wrong thing with that. Everyone's different. Everyone has a different story. So there are people that were successful from the start and dropped out of uni and started something really successfully. There are other people that worked at several businesses and several startups and were in the corporate space for until their 40s and then started and were successful. I don't think that there's a specific formula for that, but I think a lot of that is you have to be really self-aware of what it is that you're good at, and what can you kind of bring to the table and what do you kind of need around you to turn it into successful.
Gotcha.
In terms of the startup idea itself, I highly recommend, if you want to start something, start with a problem. Yeah. So identify something that needs solving. Yeah. And then follow the lean startup methodology and try and find a solution that adds value to people enough for them to pay.
So, what happens if your solution for the problem isn't popular and your startup fails? Do you start working on like a more conventional career, or do you keep pursuing startups?
Again, that's that's a very personal question. So after my startup, I had the opportunity to go back into corporate space. I still have a lot of opportunities to go back in it, but for me, I found what I really enjoy doing, which is startups. And so this is, this is just a space that I kind of want to be in.
Yeah.
But that's me. That's my, that's what I want to be doing. There's no shortage of people that have, started something immediately again and made something work, because you learn a lot of lessons from doing something.
Yeah.
There are other people that have gone back into corporate space and realized that they're a lot happier there. There's a lot less stress.
Yeah.
Those sort of things, and they'll be a lot more successful in that space too. So again, I think there's no right or wrong answer with that, right? Like, everyone's different. Everyone has different wants and needs and are better at different things. You've just got to find what works for you.
Gotcha.
Versus what the image of what that should look like should be.
So this might be a really big question.
Yeah.
But why did you personally choose startups over going back to the corporate world?
Why did I? I think it's one of those things when you find what you're really passionate about. So you just kind of know.
What makes you so passionate about this?
Okay, so put it this way. When I graduated from uni, I did engineering and economics, and so having Indian parents, I had to go and find a job.
Yeah.
And so I was working at an engineering company for about 2 years, and a couple of weeks in, I knew almost straight away that wasn't what I really wanted to do. And so I threw myself into the startup space. I tried to start a few things while I was at uni. I didn't know what a startup was at that time. I didn't know what a business model was. I didn't know a lot. But I knew that was what, I really kind of, there was something about it that drew me to it. And so I would spend, I would come home, and most nights I would, I'd go to work from 9 to 6 and then come home and work until midnight, 2 a.m. every night. Because I was trying to build something. And so, the question for me was, if it was flipped around the other way and I was working on my startup from 9 to 6 every day, would I come home and do the same job that I'm doing now from 7 till 2 in the morning?
Yeah.
And for me, it was really clear, no, I wouldn't.
Okay.
So I think a lot of your actions will determine what, will determine what you're actually passionate in and those sort of things. And so if there's something that you really want to do, you will always find a way to do it, right? So I think if you really want to do a startup, whether you're studying, whether you're doing whatever, there'll be certain components of it that you just can't help yourself do. Yeah. Again, everyone's story is different. That's just my kind of personal experience. But for me, a lot of it was, I kind of knew that that startups were just something that I was willing to go out of my way and spend my time doing. Like, we're filming this on a Sunday afternoon, right? There's a million other things that I could be doing, but this is what I really enjoy. And so that to me is an indication of this is what I really want to do, versus would I go into a corporate job at the moment and spend my Sunday afternoon doing that? I feel like I would rather pull my eyes out. Gotcha. So it's everyone's different when it comes to those sort of things. It's a matter of what do you really want to be doing, what really drives you, what really motivates you, what makes you in a sense the best version of yourself.
Gotcha. Startups give you a lot of life experience as well.
Absolutely. So I mean, again, so the way that I kind of saw it for startups was so when I left my job and went all into my business, I was prepared to fail, because again, I was very aware that there's 90% failure rate and all of those things. But for me, it was more, I was prepared to fail, but what I wasn't prepared for was the regret of not trying.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was I try this for a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever. The worst case scenario is that I've got more life lessons. I've put myself ahead of other people my age. And literally the worst case was that I would go back and be doing the same thing that I'm doing now.
Yeah.
Where the upside of that is I'm working on something that I'm actually really passionate about. And I'd spent the last, sort of 6 to 8 months actually building that business as well, so up to a particular point. So it wasn't just okay, I think I need to leave and I need to kind of jump off. Yeah. I put things in steps so that, when I left, I wasn't just leaving and putting myself in the deep end as well. So there are things that you can do to kind of stagger that. But yeah, I think for me, it was always from a perspective of in my mind, knowing that this will most likely not fail.
Mm-hmm.
Most likely not succeed, but still being prepared to kind of jump in and take the chance because I couldn't live with not trying.
Gotcha. I see.
Cool. So on that note, Will, for anyone who's... are you looking for a job in the startup space, or are you looking to gain some experience?
Not yet. I'm still trying to figure out how to integrate into uni life now and look for opportunities within, that sort of space for now.
Yep. Awesome. So we'll keep track of you. If anyone wants to find you on social or say hello or those sort of things, or answer some of the questions that you had today.
Sure.
Again, everyone's got a different perspective. What's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Oh, damn. Well, my name is William Nguyen, but because the Nguyen part is so common, it's like 50 of me, so... But you can try, I got a profile.
Do you have like a Twitter account or an Instagram or
just
something?
Facebook.
Just Facebook?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you want, we'll chuck your Facebook into the show notes for this video, and again, if people want to reach out, I'm sure they can do it that way.
Alright, sure.
Cool.
Sweet.
Awesome. Thanks for coming in, man.
Yeah, it's
Good
nice
luck with
seeing
everything.
you. Thanks so much.
Cheers.